Okay, good morning. We're about to start. So, Vania, the floor is yours.
Yeah,
And
ready?
I will be the moderator today for doing the questions and answers.
Cool. So, good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here, attending this presentation. I'm very grateful for having this so big audience today. And let's start. So, some information about me. I'm Vania. I'm a computer science engineer. I'm around the healthcare sector for more than 20 years. And actually, I am the CTO and the co-founder of NuVita. And you can find me there. So today, we are going to have a look at the project that we have delivered the last couple of years. And we will see what we delivered and why, and the solution architecture as well. So, in 2023, the Regional Healthcare Authority decided to renovate the EMR system across 19 districts in the region. And in each hospital, in each healthcare provider, there were different hospital information systems with different vendors and legacy solutions to integrate. And so to ensure consistency, share data, and vendor-neutral source of truth was needed. And that's why FHIR was chosen as a backbone for this architecture. So something related to the scope and the context of the project. We are in Italy, in the northern part of Italy. We have 19 districts, as I told you. More than 40 hospitals, 8,000 practitioners involved, and 10 million of patients. For delivering this CDR, of course, we had some project scope constraints. So we had to face and deal with regulatory and compliance requirements, such as the GDPR, as you can imagine, and as well medical device regulation for the EMR part, as you can see. Then we had to face the integration with legacy systems with different and varying capabilities of integration and interoperability. And then time was another big constraint. We have less than 2 years to put in place the product, the project, and the rollout of the solution. So the project started in 2023, in January 2023. And during the first quarter, we had to plan and design the solution, the infrastructure solution. And within the first year, we had to go to the user acceptance tests and start with the first group of users in the first healthcare provider. And then, along 2024, we had the rollout of the solution along all the other hospitals. As you can imagine, we couldn't do that by ourselves. So the project was related to a temporary consortium of companies, and each company was responsible for some part of this big, massive project. GPE, which is an Italian company, was responsible for the EMR implementation. We had Ascom for the intensive care unit. Accenture was responsible for the digital integration hub and the configuration on top of our product. We had Almaviva for the infrastructure as a service governance of the project, and IQVA, which I think there are some representatives here from other countries, responsible for the clinical trial management system and study-related software. And NuVita, which I represent, and our responsibility was to deliver this FHIR clinical data repository and more. So we had not only the CDR, but also we had to implement a terminology service feature. We had to provide consent management. We had to provide a patient data viewer. And everything was delivered on top of a BPM and workflow engine with no-code and low-code design tools. So this is our logical and modular architecture of new platform. As you can see, we call it a clinical operating system. We have this integrated development environment in which you can define forms, workflow, We have an API and SDK, and on top of that, we realize this FHIR Server. We implement also the audit record repository. We have a policy enforcement point, decision point, information point module. We have feature for the personal health information masking, for the providing and extraction of data from the CDR for the trial management system, for example, and the terminology, as I told you. On top of that, we have EMR, EHR, PHR, and care plan management. Then logically, we have patient administration modules, privacy, treatment, information, and research-related consent management, and then the MPI. So within the whole picture of the project, you will see on the right side of the slide, you have the representation, very naive, but it's simple and I think effective of what you have inside an hospital information system. You have an MPI, you have a patient administration management system, an order manager, radiology, laboratory, and in each hospital we had different software and vendors to integrate to. On the left side of the slide, we have this big project that we delivered. So we have an identity provider put in place, and all the module you can see in this slide. So let's see interoperability transaction. So how this hospital information system can integrate with varying solution to the CDR. So by means of the digital integration hub, all the transaction can be monitored as an open gateway. And for software that has REST API, of course, they can integrate with by means of FHIR standards to the clinical data repository. But for all the legacy system that only talk HL7 version 2 messages or XDS transaction, we had to put in place some kind of workflows to transform data and put inside the clinical data repository. So within the EMR solution and the solution that we provided to the hospital, all the transactions were based on FHIR, of course. So we integrate via all the CRUD operation on the FHIR and the REST API for publishing resources from the EMR system and sharing data alongside with the intensive care unit and all the other software around. We had some operation implemented for patient match, for example, the dollar everything on the patient. We provided the consent dollar acquire consent operation to start the workflows for the interaction for the doctor and clinician to retrieve the patient consent for treatment as well. And of course, all the terminology service operation that we had to put in place in order to be compliant to sharing value set, code system, and concept map as well. So the main challenges and constraints that we had to face was related to the HL7 version 2 transaction support, XDS, and audit repository transaction profile support. We had to face also how to federate this terminology service for the shareability of information and synchronization of them. And then, of course, we had the issue related to security, scalability, and monitoring. So for the challenge number 1 related to HL7 v2 integration, we had an approach of segment extractor approach. So we, for all the messages in place in any hospital information system, our HL7 handlers will extract information from the PID segment in order to retrieve information about the patient, the PV1 and PV2 for the encounter resources, the ORC, OBR for the service request, and so on. And here you have a link to what the community used as an implementation guide to make this mapping available. And of course, you have also to write your own code in order then to put in place in your own software this to make it happen. For SDX integration, the IHE profile that we decided to be compliant to was the IT 65 and the 105 for the provide document bundle and simplified publish. And here you can have a link to what the standard is about, and also here you have a mapping from all the extrinsic object data that you have in an XDS transaction and what should be in a document reference FHIR resource. Terminology service in a federated CDR. We had to decide to synchronize or replicate data and how to manage this stuff, because as you can imagine, you have some code system and value set that has to be managed by central authorities because they have a global wide scope, and others that have local scope. So the idea was to implement this kind of federation by means of subscription, and so we had in the global tenant instance of our CDR in the terminology service, we have nationalities, cities, practitioner role, and all the main code system available and valid for all the hospital around the region. And then for each tenant, we had a local scope terminology management system, for example, custom local procedure code for the order manager that works only for that specific hospital. And so we implemented this import and synchronization feature via subscription, and this is some UI that we had in place. So in this slide, I'm going to go fast because time is going to pass away quick. So for the challenge number 4, we have the real-time notification. So we use subscription not only for the terminology service synchronization, but for many other transactions, such as the consent management workflows. So the EMR system starts with the operation $acquire consent to the CDR, and it triggers a workflow in our software in order to let the user to provide the policy, retrieve the consent, and create the consent resource in the CDR, and then notify the EMR system or the clinical trial management system that the consent has been provided for the patient. Number 5, security, privacy, scalability, and monitoring. Of course, we had to deal with some issue related to security and privacy, and the best way is to be compliant to ISO standards, such as the 27001 plus the 2 guidelines for cloud service provider and data privacy. And for the auditing issue, the best way is to have an approach implementing an audit record repository that can collect all the transaction audit log, audit trial node information. Of course, all of them in the CDR FHIR system as well. Scalability. We had to deal with the computational scalability and data sharding. This was the only way to put in place a system that can be scaled for many hospitals and to manage a long-term archive and online archive. Monitoring. All the system around has to implement open telemetry standard in order to be able to collect metrics from all the system. And this is a picture of our architecture in terms of containerized microservices, multi-tenant solution. This is bigger, and this you can see it better. So we have we use Kubernetes as a container orchestrator. On top of that, we had MongoDB for data management system and NoSQL database. We use Redis for distributed cache. We had RabbitMQ for the event-driven design approach, and then all the monitoring stuff by means of Prometheus and Grafana. And on top of that, all the microservices provided by our platform. Another challenge was how to deal with the data modeling. We had to analyze all the use cases that the EMR system had to deal with. And then we had to select interoperable resources that were suitable to be managed across all the ecosystem. Then we had to make some profiling of resources, choosing which code system, which terminology use, and so on. And you had to get the consensus from all the actors around and the customer as well. So for the FHIR data modeling, we decided to have some general resources for the organization, location of the service, and the compliant IHE profile to expose those information is the mobile care service discovery profile that we decided to be compliant to. Then we have shared value set and code system and value set and concept map. And this is the link of the guideline that you can find how to deal with. For the patient administration, we have all these other resources in place. And of course, I let you in the presentation the link to the profiles and the implementation guide that we use to develop this stuff. And for the EMR, these were the resources that we selected: allergen tolerance, condition, questionnaire response, risk assessment, and so on. And we had to deal with HL7 version 2 profiles such as device enterprise communication, elaborate technical workflow, and so on. And to extract data, QADM was the profile that we implemented to retrieve all this stuff. Tools adapted. So if you have to create your own implementation guide, you can use for FHIR profiling FISH and Sushi, which are the language and the tool to implement and define profile, and so many other requirements that you want to deal with your project scope. We use Visual Studio Code as a tools to implement a new platform, because we have also some tools for configuring this extension on the FHIR resource, on custom extension on the FHIR resource that has been defined by the implementation guide. So some figures. These are the numbers of resources that has been collected nowadays within the clinical data repository, and day by day it will be filled with many, many other resources, as you can see there. Next step, now we have to monitor and tune the system and cooperate with the regional authorities and national authorities and European authorities to extend and reconcile our own implementation guide with the regional and national one, especially for the European HDS regulation that is coming. Lesson learned, maybe it's just confirmed. Interoperability is hard, but essential, and you can do it alone. You have to collaborate and cooperate with many actors, and the big deal was not the technology and the standard, but people. So it was hard to get anonymous consensus, but at the end, we did it. So, thank you, and thank you for being here.